So welcome, everybody. We're going to have an engaging discussion around Govtech, specifically the application of innovative technologies and digital solutions to public sector challenges, and specifically the opportunities that presents to the Ukrainian government and to the Canadian government and to entrepreneurs and companies globally. Our panel will bring a number of different perspectives to this discussion. We will have the Ukrainian municipal and state government perspective. We will have the perspective of the Canadian government through the government of Quebec, as well as the perspective of businesses, specifically businesses that want to engage with governments in Ukraine and in Canada on the development and the adoption of some of these solutions. So with that, why don't we begin the discussion? And Oleg, I will begin with you. Can you share a success story where digital transformation made a significant impact on a Ukrainian city's infrastructure?
Hello to everyone. The challenges makes us stronger and more creativity. And of course, invasion pushed digitalization in the way of safety. So thanks to the moment of invasion, Kyiv already had infrastructure, and we had applications for our citizens which covers transportation. And through that channel, we, in very fast mode, organized safety services for our citizens, maps of hitting points, maps of bomb shelters, instruction about evacuation, and etc., which unfortunately helps survive in the city. Because previously our strategy was about comfort living, give as much services as we can on municipal level. So this digital impact we already feel and we already implement it. And in addition, we are working on resilience, because our city have to be ready for any kind of scenario from the future. And we see all climate changing, and the work conditions from municipal level, it's quite similar to any another natural disasters or man-made disasters like Chernobyl in our history. In this case, any municipals have to provide safety for their citizens and help them survive in the city. So that's one of the point view on that what we are doing with digitalization, and that experience I'm sure can be useful for any city in this world. And think about your city. Are you feel safety? Are you feel enough support from the city about you and your living, safety and comfort living in the city?
Thank you for that perspective. Oleg, what's really striking is that at the municipal level, the challenges really are the challenges that people face every single day, and it touches all aspects of their lives. So maybe shifting from the municipal perspective to the state level perspective, Slava, why did the Ukrainian government bet on a state mobile application, and what are the results and experience from your perspective?
First of all, I would like to say that we established the idea of working on the perspective of the mobile application in 2019, and that is a very important point, because many people of the time established Ministry of Digital Transformation, we came from the business sector, and so we started thinking, we are continuing thinking as a people from a private sector, and we understood that the coverage of the internet usage, for example, was already 70% by the smartphones, and this is the better way to deliver services to people, because people do not want to open the browsers on their smartphones and access to something. They want to open the mobile applications. And we started looking into that area. A lot of people from another entities was against that idea, because that was a classic point of view, and we heard a lot of feedback. It's like you do something for early adopters, for young people, not for everyone in Ukraine, but we were on that way. We made a very useful and simple application. And when the full-scale invasion started, the DIA confirmed that DIA became the main option to deliver documents, services, social assistance to our people. Because when, why it's necessary to understand, because when you have the war and you have the occupied territories, they do not have anymore the offline offices for public services. They just can have access through the smartphones because the websites are blocked too. When millions of people move to another territories, the capacity of offline services, of the centers with offline services cannot proceed everyone, every application form, etc. And for example, the line for people to get the status of the temporary displaced person was the 4 months, and the only way to deliver this service to people on the free territories is again the mobile application, and the people who are abroad is again the mobile application, and we started making payments for people who live on the occupied territories, etc. So we made a bet on this idea of the smartphone, and this give to us the results during the full-scale invasion, and we started generating different kinds of services, like Oleg said, on the municipal level, and we started generating donations, buying the obligations, reporting about Russian forces, special evacuation documents, etc., 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 just through the mobile application, and we just confirmed that this is the right direction for the governments, and just for now, people in Ukraine, of course, we will always have the opportunity to get the offline services, but people in Ukraine are not asking us anymore, like, does some service will be available in a mobile application. They just ask when, because they absolutely sure that they will have access to everything just through the mobile application.
I just want to take a moment to reflect on what a tremendous accomplishment that is. From the Canadian perspective, we have been trying across various provinces and states to implement a digital health record, a digital ID, never mind an app that takes all of that information in one place, and never mind trying to implement it while being in a state of war. That is a truly tremendous accomplishment, and really speaks to the strength of Ukraine's tech sector, to the resiliency of its populations. And I think it's a great segue also, Vincent, for a question to you. What are some of the key challenges in terms of integrating digital solutions within government operations, and how can these be addressed?
Thank you, Dr. Claudia. So, first of all, I would like to say again that I'm really honored to be here for this event. Like Claudia said, we are not the best, in fact, in North America about digital ID. Sometimes we like to say that, even if we are in the new world compared to the Europe, we are one of the oldest constitutional regime in Quebec. So with the Act of Quebec of 1763 and the Act of the Confederation in 1867, and nowadays, 2023, nothing has really changed. So this is the same constitutional regime that we have. So I know that my family came in Quebec in 1757. Everything is in the record, but we didn't really, I would say, digitalize our digital identity in Quebec or in North America in general. So it's a big challenge for us to do it. And because nobody did it in North America, it was important for Quebec to, I would say, think outside the box. And this is why we went to meet our Ukrainian colleagues, because they are, of course, digital tiger. And I think they are really the best, in fact, for digital identity. And honestly, we are really, really surprised how, Ukraine is able to deliver a digital ID. Like Claudia said, we are far from there, but we are working hard. And I would say that in some kind of my perspective, I'm an open source enthusiast. So it's always a challenge when you work as a civil servant, because Sometimes when you are in the IT sector, you maybe have a higher salary, more challenges. But what we try to implement in the government of Quebec is cooperation with other government. And one of the ways to do it is open source. Like, for example, we have implemented a public participation platform in collaboration with the government of Catalonia in Spain in open source. So this is a way to really put forward a collaboration with another government. So I would say that we are used to do it. I did it in previous project. So public participation, like our open data portal, we did it with our colleagues from around Canada. So I think digital identity is I would say, our next big challenge, and we are really, really honored to collaborate with Ukraine on this aspect. So of course, we will need to work on our, I would say, legislative agenda, our bureaucratic agenda, but I'm sure we'll have a great collaboration on the technological aspect with the government of Ukraine.
So we heard the government perspective, whether from Oleg at the municipal level or from Slava and Vincent at the state level. But a really important perspective is the business perspective. These solutions that are being adopted by governments are being developed and driven by the business community. So, Daly, question for you. How is Metropolitan AI contributing to the creation of these solutions, of smart city and critical infrastructure protection solutions? And what potential do you see for those innovations in Ukrainian cities?
Yeah, absolutely. So we founded our brand on like kind of 5 dimensions of security, safety, privacy, equity, and reliability. And we try to incorporate these different dimensions into our product at every iteration of it. So we feel very strongly, especially if it's public-facing technology, you have to have a real focus on security and privacy, and these other dimensions as well. And so we're taking a novel approach to those 2 things and among the other dimensions that we've been implementing. And I think that's important for not just the Canadian context, but especially Ukraine, where security is paramount in a lot of these technologies. And so if in the private industry, we're going to deploy technology into public-facing environments, into these municipalities, into these other authorities, it's especially important to incorporate these types of things into our product. And so I think that basically boils down to what I was saying, is that we are having a strong focus on both security and safety and reliability, privacy, equity, every step of the way, and we believe that'll make us successful in our ability to deploy.
Thank you. So why don't we shift the discussion a little bit and talk about strategy. So Ruslan, what is the short and long-term strategy for Ukrainian fintech and digital solutions during the war and after the war?
Thank you, Claudia. It's a very important question really for Ukraine right now, because when aggression started, we got, during the first 2 months, a lot of requests from Ukrainian fintechs, companies which were oriented for Ukrainian market, for Ukrainian products, and they stopped the activities because it was no online credits. A lot of companies were doing business offline, like credit unions, so people started to leave Ukraine, and these businesses stopped immediately. So it was 100% that they didn't work. Nobody gave any credits during like first 3-4 months of the war. And a lot of companies started to ask us as FinTech Association what we can do for them to help them to improve the situation. And we have a very good partner in Ukraine, it's International Financial Corporation. We turned to them to ask what from the world experience can be done in this situation to help companies to make contracts, to get them some money, because their IT teams were stuck, they couldn't pay them salaries, but they need that IT teams, people from the companies to provide the services in future. And the question was a solution to initiate creation of so-called FinTech and Innovation SMEs Open API platform for business sustainability in Ukraine. It's a long name, but the content of this is to create a matching platform where we can land Ukrainian FinTechs, Ukrainian innovation companies and IT companies which were dealing with products to show these companies internationally, to give these people like individuals, teams, companies a job. doesn't mean we want to get grants or some money for free. We want to earn this money and to provide people this opportunity. Right now, we are in process of developing the platform, and somewhere in end of January next year, it will go to production. The main also reason to launch this system, like a long strategy, is that we have people coming from frontline. We have people who are looking for job, and we propose that we need to give them opportunities to find job internationally. Russians can't kill a business which is hosted in Amazon or Hetzner, whatever, in cloud computing. So I suppose that in a long-term strategy, we have to follow our partner, Minister of Digital Transformation. They are giving us super services like identification, online identification. We can use this on our platform. And also, is what it was mentioned before that in investment we have 3F. So here in long-term strategy in fintech we have 3D. Digital, digital, and again digital. So if we are successful, we will work and we will survive and we will win. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. From the perspective of the municipal strategy, looking to the future, what spheres are you planning to develop in the near to medium to longer term? And specifically, what digital services do you think should be added?
In this case, firstly, we came from security, as was mentioned about the privacy and security. And of course, when we providing services, we feel interest of the Russians, and not only Russians, cyber criminals trying to attack our systems and destroy critical infrastructure for the cities. And this frontline is a more bigger for the cities. This is about the situation awareness center with real-time monitoring, with modeling what's happening in the city in different scenario, and that where we are focusing now internally. For the our citizens, it's about the safety, and in additional, in wartime, we have limitation about the public data, open data. So we're trying to involve our citizens in decision making in the city, and we are working around the electronic democracy services. For example, for the past year, we changed the name based on the polls in Kiev Digital, and 1,000 people was involved in this polls, and they decided which hero's name will be on the street where before was Soviet Union hero, for example. We implemented petitions where any citizens can initiate any questions, collect 6,000 votes, and these questions go directly to Commission and our local parliament, city parliament. And we're now going to householding. We're trying to help our citizens to solve the task of the householdings because they all think now about backups, about diesel generators, about the solar panel, and to collect the votes of the people who live in these houses. We want to help them on our base of electronic democracy. Unfortunately, now not working partitionary budget, but it already was implemented before the invasion, and we plan to launch it again when the wartime finished. So electronic democracy, real-time monitoring, and education. We have more than 3,000 children in our schools, and unfortunately, we cannot open the schools for that amount places for students that we have only in bomb shelter, and bomb shelters are smaller. So we have 3 times smaller bomb shelters and availability of the school. So our children's now learning in hybrid mode, offline, online, mix, and we want and already implement the platform which helps to make this style of learning and providing the schedule, providing the home task and that materials what they need for education. So this is, I think, the main domains. And on the city and awareness center, we are trying to make this popular digital twin in smart cities for modeling, because my goal and goal of our team to give the options for the mayor and his deputies in decision making. It's quite hard to organize quality data for decisions of the mayor in the city. So this is our future.
I think you bring up two very interesting points with respect to the strategy. Often when we talk about the government or the public sector adopting new technologies, it's from the perspective of improving service delivery or improving productivity or efficiency. But you bring up a very important point, because these technologies are also an opportunity to engage citizens and to strengthen not only citizen engagement, but citizen democracy and citizen agency, and give citizens a voice in not only how their services are delivered, but what services are delivered. And that is truly, truly impactful. And the second point that you bring up is just the role of this type of approach during a full-scale war. And so I'll turn this question over to you, Slava. What is the role of electronic services, and especially the state mobile application DIA, in the conditions of a full-scale war?
Yeah, I would like to say that, first thing that I want to share with you, that when the war starts, the full-scale war starts in your country, as a government, you get a huge number of absolutely unexpected challenges that you had never before, because it's not just about military needs and etc. Because you just like a government have to solve numerous unexpected things, when you have the fire in the house, you always have the instructions on the walls how to leave this building in case of the fire, but you never have such an instructions for the war. You just have the challenges that comes, millions of people started crossing the border, people losing their documents, people losing their houses, people on the occupied territory wants to let you know where did they saw the Russian troops or Russian military equipment or etc. And this is comes from different areas to you, and you just have to solve this. And such a solution that we have, the mobile application became the platform for this, because in the very beginning, for example, a few services, in the very beginning, Russians tried to destroy our TV bridges and to destroy our TV equipment, to occupy radio and TV stations. And this is a very sensitive moment when you can lose people who live on the occupied territories, because Russians try to say that Zelensky died, Zelensky left Ukraine and died in the same moment, the Ukrainian forces capitulated. And this is a very sensitive thing, because when you have the people there on the occupied territories, if they don't believe anymore that Ukraine will come and save them, it's just a losing of that people. And we decided and we found a solution how to, in a few days, started to have the broadcasting of TV and radio in India, just to have the instant news for everyone, and when people on the way of leaving territories, etc. And when you think about the civil times, TV and radio are not the state services. Generally, this is the media. But when you have the war, they became the state services, and you have to be ready to adopt to these conditions and to launch such a service. The same thing happened with donations, because in the very beginning there was a lot of requests from different military units for equipment, but the procedures on the side of the Ministry of Defense was old style, and it was impossible to share to buy any equipment for these military units. But as the Russian invasion started in 2014, we had a lot of NGOs who had the experience of buying some equipment and delivering this equipment to the military units. And we just made a quick cooperation, and we became the first ever country, ever application in the world who started collecting the donations. And now these donations goes to the fund, to the platform United 24, and the accounts of it is the accounts of the banking accounts of the National Bank of Ukraine. And like we first time ever created the experience when people can make donations directly to the national bank. And we just had a challenge, and we found the solution for this. The same happened with the reporting of the Russian forces. It's like people started to even write it to the Instagram to us, like we said the tanks, we saw the tanks, and like do something with that. And we launched the bot in a Telegram messenger when you can report the information, but before that you have to confirm your personality through DIA without sharing personal data. But Russian bots cannot report about this and make the fake information. Just people who are Ukrainian citizens can do this. And we made a lot of solutions for this. Then, of course, started the solutions for reconstruction, and we will talk about that. But the first answers was immediate and instant, and this helped us to have these answers to our people and to help them. Thank you.
Those are actually very extraordinary examples of nimbleness and resiliency and innovation in the face of some extremely challenging circumstances. More on the private sector perspective, Dali, you are participating in something called the Canada-Ukraine Security Innovation Challenge, or QSIC. Can you talk a little bit about how initiatives like that can help facilitate collaborations between Canadian tech companies and Ukrainian government bodies to enhance the development of digital solutions and cybersecurity solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned earlier, we're developing public-facing technology, and security is paramount. And if you subvert that, you can weaponize the systems we're trying to serve. And so we do our best possible, and we're very knowledgeable about cybersecurity, and we're kind of want to be on the leading edge of it. But Ukraine is obviously in a different position. They, every day, are thwarting and managing these attacks. And so there's a lot of experience from people in Ukraine managing the operations and deployment of this type of technology, and we can learn a lot from that. And so QSIC has given us an opportunity to potentially engage with these types of users and developers and managers of technology. And they can provide a lot of experience and hands-on field experience to inform how we can best improve our technology. And so there's probably a lot of things we can learn from them and to incorporate in our development and to make our products better. And so that's one avenue that QSIC can really help companies like ours and other Canadian technology companies.
And as a Canadian tech company, are you in this space, are you looking to also further the engagement in terms of being a potential solution provider to some of the challenges that states like in Ukraine and other and globally are facing? Is that part of your kind of go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously like it validates what we're doing when we see these challenges come out that show a need for the type of technology that we're developing. And so this is a great avenue to connect us with end users and connect us with potential operators of our technology. And so something like QSIC is a great way to connect us and to almost streamline or accelerate the ability for us to deploy our technology. And so yeah, it's an awesome opportunity.
Great, thank you. So let's talk, so we've talked about success stories, but let's talk about how do we actually measure success? Because sometimes a success story provides a fantastic narrative, but if you dig deeper, how do we actually know that the technologies that are being implemented are actually driving the outcomes that we'd like to see? So Vincent, how do you measure success in digital transformation projects in government, and what metrics, in your opinion, are the most important?
Yes, thank you, Claudia, for the for this question. And I talked with my colleagues because it was a tough question, and we. In fact, in Canada, Quebec was the first jurisdiction to put in place a Ministry of Cybersecurity and Digital Technology. And one of the challenges we wanted to achieve with that is to have like this kind of global overview to the government, because before that time, each department was in charge of their IT. and they had their own vision, their own goals, their own electronic services. But now people want to, I would say, deal with the government of Quebec in general and with the government of Canada in general for their own jurisdiction. But they don't really care which department is responsible for the passport or for the health card, etc. So the creation of this department was to make sure that we have like a government global focus IT electronic services. So it came with a law to make sure that all the budget and all the IT projects are going in the good way. So we have many things to achieve. So on the global aspect, we have modernized our law. We did also, I would say, IT regulation, a cloud IT regulation to make sure that all public services are moving to the cloud. Of course, in Ukraine, it's more an emergency, but in Quebec, we need to face to this kind of problem. So just one of example, we had a flood in Montreal, and the basement was flooded, and one of the department lost all their data because they were not in the cloud. So usually this cannot happen anymore, this kind of stuff, because we moved to the cloud. Also, the data management, and of course this is really, I would say, a great challenge here, because each department developed their own IT services, and they are not really, like I said, we don't have a national or a provincial ID in Quebec. Each department have an ID for each person. So this is really a challenge that we need to overcome to really have, I would say, a more centric, focused citizen for his data. So this is one of our best challenge, I would say. And after that, each department that is doing a new project need to come to see our department and get an approbation to make sure that they focus on I would say the good measure. So we have kind of a strategy with measure, and each department needs to show us that they respect this kind of benchmark, and to make sure that it will be well implemented.
So those are some of the metrics and benchmarks at we would say kind of the state or the provincial level, or like at the municipal level, at the citizen level. Are those benchmarks and metrics the same metrics that you look at?
Of course, this one included, but when I think what we are really focusing in the digital, from digital perspective of view, because the city in global, if we don't talk about the digital, have much more different metrics. But in digital, we have feedback of our customers. And for these reasons, we use our pools, and we ask once in per year our customers, our citizens, about the satisfaction rate of the service providing, of applications. And in addition, we have Google and Apple ratings with the star, and now Kyiv Digital have 4.7. And I think like for municipal level, it's quite good feedback, because when QR ticket for public transport doesn't work, we really fast receive 1 star. So to keep this rating, it's I think it's good result of our team. So the metrics, it's feedback of the customers, and feedback, it's our base of improvements, of ideas, what to provide and what makes better in the city.
It's interesting, as you're describing the metrics, you're referring to the citizen as the customers. I have to say, it's, for me at least, quite rare to hear government look at the citizens that it serves as actually a customer, including adopting a philosophy where those customers have the ability, like in other parts of the economy, to actually almost instantaneously evaluate the level of service. It's a very different type of approach than one that has been taken traditionally. So Ruslan, let's talk a little bit about kind of why we're here today in the spirit of international collaboration. Can you discuss the role of international cooperation and collaboration in Ukraine's journey towards an API economy?
Yes, thank you, Claudia. I would like to mention that probably 3-4 years ago, Ukraine had 1.5 law in financial sector, like 1.5. So 20 years we were living with something that helped us to make business in financial sector, in insurance, in other financials. And thanks to National Bank of Ukraine, thanks to Ministry of Digital Information, which created framework of services, of 4 services, and National Bank of Ukraine, which started to work with the legislation on open banking. We got today, I would say that I have a feeling that I am living in Ukraine like in sandbox, because we can try everything right now. So the question is that legislation on open banking will go in force in August 2025, and it will enable a lot of new services in Ukraine, digital services, financial services online. We are approaching quick payment system in Ukraine, and here we really need international experience because it will be made in Ukraine for the first time. And Europe is already with open banking, with new services, and it also pushes Ukraine to new models of business. New models of business in online. And we hope that these new models will create new companies, new startups. It will go forth for Ukrainians, for our international partners, for you, together with us, to create something new. It will be created not like in many years, but in a year, in months. And the main problem for us as association, and personally for me, that we do not want the leak of talents from Ukraine. We want people to live in Ukraine, to make business in Ukraine, but make this business internationally, find new partners in such conferences like today, and make this business successful. So thank you very much for inviting for this conference, and I suppose it will have great success. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, as we're approaching the last 10 minutes of the panel, we'd like to provide an opportunity if there are any questions in the audience for any of our panelists. We do have, I think I can see one microphone over there and another microphone on this side. So if anyone has a question, please don't hesitate to walk up to the microphone, and we'll provide you with an opportunity to ask that question. And do we have a question? Oh, we do. I wasn't sure if someone was just getting up for a bio break and didn't want to play. Please, go ahead.
Dmitro Malik, Alex, Canada. I have a question to our Ukrainian colleagues. Can you give an example of some legislative challenges that you had during the implementation of this DIA application? Because I'm asking, there are a lot of challenges here in Canada.
Yeah, I will answer, but before I answer to your question, I just want to add a couple of words to Ruslan.
Yes.
What Ruslan said. So, for example, as in India, we have documents of Ukrainian people, and it's possible to make the sharing a copy. So, as we reinvented the idea of ID, so we had to reinvent the idea of copy of the passport, and we made it digital. And like for the new opportunities that fintech received, like when you can share a copy of your passport online through different applications, it's give the opportunity of like speeding up the number of the operations per day. So sometimes we had days when like I think 80,000 banking accounts was open per day. So just by sharing the copy, because open the bank account by sharing with the sharing of the digital copy of passport, like can take 1.5 minutes for the person. It's absolutely easy and it's very quick for people. So answering to your question, I think it's very important to speak about this with our Canadian colleagues. It's always necessary to change the legislation when you launch anything, because when you have the business tasks, it's very easy, like to to agree with something and to launch it. But when you have the governmental solutions, they are always fully regulated, and everything to the last dot is fixed in the legislation on a different level, on the level of a cabinet of ministers, or on the level of the parliament, etc. And it's always necessary. So inside of my team at the ministry, we had the small department, and now it's an even huge department who work on the legislation, and we make the drafts for everything. So every solution that we launch in DIA, or every digital solution outside of DIA, it always means that we have to make the drafts for the resolutions for the cabinet of a minister, and discuss this with our colleagues who are responsive for that directions in the government. And the same with the parliament, we have to discuss some solutions on the level of the parliament and prepare the drafts, and to then parliament to vote this draft. So we always have to change everything, and sometimes it's could be the solution to start from the experiment. We have such a legislation construction in Ukraine because, when you launch something absolutely new, it's impossible to change the legislation for it. When no one knows what is digital driver license, no one will vote for this, and the cabinet of ministers will not approve this idea. But there is the construction of the experiment, and we just draft this, launch as experiment. And what mean the experiment? It's not like just temporary permission to have such a solution, because another important point, during the experiment, you will have some conclusions of it, like successful or maybe unsuccessful, but successful conclusions of this experiment that could be laid as a basement for the next full-scale legislation. And the second thing, when you start with experiment, this is the legislative approval for this solution, and people start using it, business starts using it, state institutions start working with this experiment, and they just can't switch to the full legislation after the experiment. So we in Ukraine, we always use this approach for everything. And for example, for the same thing as ID, we had 6 months of experiment. Even more, not 6 months, 9 months of experiment, and 6 months of it we spent on the discussion and preparing of the law that regulated the digital passport and equalized passport in the smartphone to the physical one. And then experiment ended, and the full law started working.
Vincent, do you want to add a little bit of a Canadian perspective in terms of the role of legislation in either accelerating or impeding some of the
yes, thank
opportunities?
You. In Canada, it's really complex digital ID because there are so many exceptions to deal with. But I think one of the challenges we will have is trying to keep it simple. So what we are trying to do right now is that, like I said, we don't have a national or a provincial ID in Quebec. So we use the health card. And right now, when you create a new account to renew your driver license, they ask you I would say, your unique ID of your health card. So when you do that, it creates your digital ID. And we will try to build on this new ID to create, I would say, a general ID. So we did a legislative modification in Quebec to make sure that the Ministry of Cybersecurity and Digital Technology is in charge of the digital ID. So it's official in the law. It's our new jurisdiction, our new responsibility. And I think we will begin with that, and we will add, I would say, more services with the time. And of course, there are some discussion of the department, but like I said, we will need to keep it simple. So maybe for an example, our MVP will be to have an app. And for example, if you go to a national park in your city, you don't pay for the parking. So maybe we can just start with that. Just show that you live in Quebec City, you go to the national park, I don't pay for the parking. And gradually, put more official credentials like the health ID card, the driver license, because people are not used to have a general ID. So if you go to the store to buy alcohol, you will show your health card ID, but it doesn't make sense. But we did that so many years. So this is really a culture of change, and we need to manage with that. So it will be, I think, like many things. So a general ID, make sure that all the department try to convert, I would say, a digital ID, but a right. So you don't have a digital health card. You just have the right to go to the hospital. You don't have a driver license. You have the right to drive. So this is like a change that we need to do in our legislation and how people see credentials in their daily life, I would say. So,
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have a couple of questions. Here's a question.
Yes, hi everyone. First of all, thank you guys so much for this panel. It's really great, especially from the government tech perspective. And I've got a question to both Slava and Vincent, you guys. So Vincent, you mentioned the human factor and from the government's perspective, and you said that not everybody is excited to work for the government and at the government. So my question is, do you plan or do you collaborate with any businesses or tech companies or tech professionals outside of the government to enforce the digitalization, especially from the Ukrainian standpoint? Because I can give you a great example. Many of our software engineers who used to work for US companies, they decided to join the army, and now they're in the military tech. So do you guys collaborate with any tech professionals or tech companies to help the digitalization of the government?
Yes, of course. This is not, I would say, my main task because I'm in charge of international relations. So I say that in my job, I try to create, I would say, an experience for the civil servant. So, like, if you work in digital ID, to meet Slava in Teams, it's quite cool. You know, you meet an expert, you can ask questions. This is something you cannot really live if you live in the private sector. So I try to enable some possibilities for the civil servant, but I couldn't answer for your question. So we have kind of program for cooperation with the private sector. So we have a program called La Vitrine Numérique. So it's like the digital hub, I would say. And this is the opportunity to enterprise to show all to the civil servant what they are doing and how they can do businesses. So it's like the transparent way we found to do it. So it's like Teams meeting, and they are kind of like available to all civil servants that work in the IT government. So if you are an enterprise and you want to show your, I would say, your product, you just subscribe to this program, and I think each month there is like this kind of Teams meeting where everybody can, you know, attend and meet. So this is the best way we found. And of course, after that, there are the procurements and all that kind of stuff. But this is not my expertise. So of course, one thing that we are doing in Canada is that we are a federation. So we work closely with our other provincial government. So like, for example, in digital ID, we signed an agreement with the BC government. So for Ukraine, it's like the province of Vancouver and Victoria. So it's in the west of Canada. And we are trying to implement a distributed ledger where all the credentials will be. So if you go in BC, you are a Quebecer, you go with your mobile app in BC, the BC Gov will be able to scan your QR code and recognize your digital ID. So even if it's a provincial jurisdiction, we want to make sure that it will be interoperable for all Canada, and I hope so around the world. So this is a great challenge, and I'm sure that Slava know it well. So right now there is not like a global standard for digital ID. So we are trying to do it in Canada, some kind of standard. But of course, this will be a challenge in the coming years or maybe decades to have this kind of global standard. So like, for example, if I go in France and there is an agreement to have access to the health system, I could show my Quebec ID and it could work. So this is an example. But there are a lot of job to do.
Yeah, if to speak about the people and attracting people, I'll try to be very brief because it's a very huge topic. So first of all, of course, when you have a huge brand of the ministry as a state institution, as we have at the Ministry of Digital Transformation, it's easier to attract people from a private sector to become a part of the ministry and start working for country and for people. So first of all. Second point is we have a huge support from different kinds of donors of organizations, and some experts work there officially, but they are becoming the part of our team because they could be the experts from different areas like healthcare or I don't know, opening the business or etc. or land or constructions area. They are not ready to be a part of state institutions, but they have a huge expertise, and they could be the people who work on the donors but make the common job with us. And of course, we work with different kinds of, as you mentioned, the IT specialists. Of course, yes, during the war, a lot of IT specialists started working on the government and security area too. But generally, we have at the Ministry of Digital Transformation, under the ministry, we had the state enterprise DIA, and we developed the mobile application by in-house team. But some projects there, some services, we can make a tenders, and private companies can take part in this, and sometimes it's mean that even they have to find the best solutions for some tasks. And if to speak about the web portals, it's always the different kinds of developers from the market who can take part in this and just win the tender and to develop that thing that is necessary in the different kinds of areas. And finally, as Alexander Bernikov said before, we have the Brave One. This is the accelerator for the drones, and there are mostly the private companies come there with the private developers, private specialists in the drones constructions who work on this, and then they, after acceleration, they get the orders from the government to develop this system, and this is the huge example of cooperation between state and people.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Please join me in thanking all of the panelists for an exciting and engaging discussion.